Oh no.
Hello, hello. Hello and welcome. We are so excited to be here with everyone on this awesome Wednesday. Oh my goodness. Heal and Thrive Live. Who's ready?
Who is ready?
I'm ready. All right, so we have an exciting show for you guys today, jam-packed. So I want to make sure we dive right into it because I know we both love to talk about the subject. So we'll get right in. So for those of you that didn't see, today we're talking all about self-care during busy times. And what more appropriate topic than self-care when the holidays are, well, let's see. What are we at? 12 days? 11 days?
12
I don't know.
days.
It's coming quick.
Yes, full swing. We're in the full swing of it.
We sure are. So we figured this would be a great topic. We know that there's a lot of busy moms out there, busy professionals who just feel like we don't have enough time for self-care. It always falls to the bottom of the list, or let's be honest, it doesn't even make the list because we just have too much to do, right?
Yes.
I understand. I'm guilty at times as well, but we want to knock this out of the park today and give you guys all some great takeaways so that you can start prioritizing your self-care during this busy holiday season. All right.
All right, let's dig right in. I'm very excited to talk about this topic today because, like Liz mentioned, today is in the middle of the holidays. We tend to put ourselves in the back seat, and that is the first thing we should be prioritizing is ourselves.
Absolutely. 100%. And if I may, how I would love to open up this conversation because I'm big on this, and those that work with me know this, is, just first and foremost, how do you spend your time? If I asked you, what is your 24 hours, your last 24 hours, what does that look like? Right? Would you know first? Second, would it reflect how you spend your time? Would that reflect who and how you want to show up, like who you want to be and how you want to show up? So that's something I want you to think about, right? Because I think a lot of us are reacting to life. We're not intentional with our time. And our time is honestly the biggest investment, right? We have. You know, money can kind of come and go, but time you get limited amount, right? And we don't know how much we have. So it's definitely our most prized possession. So it's really important that you're one aware of how you're spending that time, and secondly, is it how you want to be spending it? Are Is it reflecting who you want to be? Because if it's not, then that's probably the first place to start, right? So I printed this out because I wanted to share it. And you're not going to obviously be able to read any of it or anything like that. But this is my calendar. This was my yesterday calendar. So this just gives you an idea. Okay. Now, I wasn't perfect at this, right? This is something I've had to learn to adopt and put in place over my own healing journey because it was important to me to make sure that I was pouring into my own cup first, right? So if you notice, purple is self-care. It's the very first thing I do during the day, right? And I do it 3 times. I do it in the morning, in the afternoon, and then before bed. And that is the way that I make sure I'm out of my head, in my body, and taking care of myself so that I can show up my best self. So this is a great way, color coding, putting time on your calendar, because I always say if you don't have it, if you don't have it on your calendar, it's not going to happen, right? How about you, Luisa?
I'm the same. So I live by my calendar, and very much like you, my day starts with me time. If I don't do me time, most people are not going to want to be around me for the rest of the day. So if it does not have a space on my calendar, it is not going to happen. I tell everyone I interact with, if you weren't on my calendar, you weren't going to see me. Like, we're not. not, it's not gonna happen. It's just I live by it, without it, I feel kind of like I don't know where my North Star is without it.
Yeah, and I think another thing great to jump into is, how do you start your day? What does that look like?
Yeah, so for me, my day, I actually wrote it down a little bit. And I
Oh,
also want to point out, I think the main thing to point out about my morning routine is that this took a long time to implement. I don't want anyone to believe that I woke up one day and this just happened. It took months and months of trying to implement it for it to start actually happening. And now it's natural. Now I wake up and this is the way that it goes for me. So my morning routine, I start it by the moment I open my eyes, I lay there and I feel my body. I allow myself to feel my legs, my feet, my toes. And I probably do that for about a minute. And I just want awareness. I just want
yeah.
to feel myself in my own body. The next thing I do is I express gratitude. That's
Mm.
the first thoughts that I have right after feeling my body are expressing gratitude because I feel like what you put out into the universe, you get back from the universe. And so I want to make sure that what I'm putting out is gratitude because I want to get that back. Um, I also then meditate, and the meditating component of it for me um, is started as something because I didn't know, not that there's a right or wrong way to meditate, but I thought there was at the time. It started with me just sitting there for about 5 minutes in silence. And it evolved into me going ahead and using guided meditations to get myself started. And it started with 5 minutes, and some mornings it can now, be 30 minutes. It depends on what the rest of my calendar looks like, really. And then the next thing I do is I journal. My journal is right next to my bed. My journal,
Mm.
with some exceptions that I'll mention in a little bit, sits right next to my bed because I grab that after my meditation, and I start by writing out my about my dreams. So dream journaling. Um, I find that my dreams often have revelations, reflections, and often also some guidance. So I use my dreams. My dreams are very important to me because I feel like they may guide me or they may help explain something that has happened that I've
Is that
not known. Yeah, like that I've not known how to place or where to place or what it's related to. So that has been very helpful. The second thing I do in my journal is I set my intentions for the day. So a quick example that I'll give is I will say, for example, today I will be patient with myself. If I know that I'm going to have a busy day, or if I know that there are some things from my yesterday's to do list that I didn't finish that I'm going to want to cram in today, I'll say, I'm going to be patient with myself. I like
Mhm.
to write it down at least 3 times. If I've had a difficult week or I'm going to expect to have a difficult week, I will write it as much as 12 times. I am going to be patient with myself.
I
Kind of,
think I need to start doing that.
yeah, it's so helpful. Right? It is so helpful because then it's like, I have this, and I know that there's a name for it. I don't know what it actually is, but where it's like the brain and the actual writing, like the connection, it really works for me a lot. So the more I do it, the more it like sticks with me for the day.
I
And I'm sorry, my dog's not happy. I apologize about that.
Oh, that's
Um,
okay.
I think a lot of us have dogs, so thankfully,
Dogs
hope.
and kids, yeah, so we can all relate with this virtual world we live in. You're good.
And then the next thing I do is I write what I'm manifesting. So I'll do that. Again, I'll start with 3 times depending on how the week is going to go. An example is I trust myself wholeheartedly. If I'm struggling with trusting myself, that's what I'll go with. And then the next thing is anything that's on my mind or my heart, which in the morning sometimes is not a whole lot. Um, so yeah, I'll do that, and then I will write down my 3 to 5 things that I'm gonna get done that day. 3 to 5 important things. I give myself no more than 5 things to do in a day. Then I do some stretches. I do feel good stretches. I started by following a I printed out a list of stretches, and I started by following that. But now I just do what feels good. I'll do knees to chest. I'll do my neck stretch, and I'll do my upper back stretch. My upper back stretch, I almost like cannot live without these days. And then lastly, if I've had a rough few days, or if I know that it's a difficult time in my life, that. I will take the I will grab my phone. So this would be the first time in the morning that I've grabbed my phone. And as I get up for the day, stand up, get up from my bed, because I've done all of that in bed before I've moved. I will play some
Good.
positive affirmations.
She's good, isn't she, guys? I'm not even that good. Louisa, you're good.
Really, it just, I feel so unsettled without it now. And I can't, if I grab my phone, it's like, okay, my mind is just
Yeah.
not where it needs to be to start my day. But yeah, on rough times, the next step when I actually hit the floor, I'll grab my phone and I'll play some positive affirmations as I'm getting ready. So as I'm going into the shower and putting clothes on and all the things, I play it. My favorite is the Louise Hay. I'll just
I love her.
YouTube. Yes, I love her too. She's amazing for the positive affirmations. She gets my mind in the right place, and by the time I leave the bathroom in the morning, I am the queen of the world.
I love it. I love it. We all need a little bit of that, right?
Yes, yes. What about you? What does your morning routine look like?
Oh, well, I don't wanna follow you. I am definitely not as good as you, for sure. I'm gonna be honest, like, I kind of jump out of bed. And, I am still bad about I know I shouldn't pick up the phone, but I always do because my daughter's in Tennessee, and usually I'll get a message from her, so I do love to see that. Um, but there's 3 things I do every day relentlessly. It used to be religiously in order every morning. With time, I'm able to be flexible and kind of bend and change that and still be okay. But typically every morning I do journal. I do some stretches. I always say a prayer just to start my day. And then I do love to get in nature and do a nice walk. That is used to be first thing in the morning, and I'm going to be honest, it's now more towards lunch. But just doing those few things for myself every day really fuels me and allows me to show up as my best self and be there for everybody else that I need to be there for. Um, and I like myself better. I'm going to be honest. Like, I like who I am better when I make sure I pour that time into myself versus, just getting up and being reactive and doing, whatever it is I need to do, just jumping in. And so I've learned in my own healing journey that that was really important for my own well being, for sure.
Yeah, yeah, similar experience. All of this started for me when I started my healing journey as well. And I realized that because I wasn't pouring into myself, what I was giving out to others felt like so little. And it wasn't little, I was giving everything. But the
Mhm.
quality of it was not the same because I wasn't full to give my best to other people. I was just giving, and now we were both receiving depleted portions of myself, on a daily
Yes,
basis.
I
So
do know.
you're like, yes, yes, I've been there.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah.
I
So
was
that,
more like the boiling pot of water that I put the top on and it was just the water was pouring over, and I was just like reacting,
yeah,
right? Like I was irritable, everything was setting me off, and I didn't listen to my body, and that's why I was showing up that way. I didn't listen to my body. I was in my head, I wasn't in my body, right? And when we show up by listening to everything that's going on in our head, guess what? We're not going to show up well, right? Because it's just the way it is. When we're in our body and we lead with our heart, we show up so much better because we lead with love, right?
we do. We do. And that boiling pot that you mentioned, that's what happens to me these days when I don't start my morning off focused on myself.
Yes.
If I
Yeah.
start it focused on anything else, do not ask me a question because it could be, what
Mhm.
is your name? And the response is not going to come out in any positive.
Well, and I gotta tell you, I know a few of our listeners for sure. I can relate to them, right? Because when I had little kids and I was working full time and I was trying to keep everything, I always said I was trying to keep all the balloons up in the air, right? Doing laundry, grocery shopping, dishes, and like during this time, then you have Christmas on top of it and you're just feeling stretched too thin. So that's by far the hardest point because you're limited in time, energy, money, really everything. All of your resources are depleted, let's be honest. And a time that's supposed to be the most joyful ends up being the most stressful. And then something that we're supposed to enjoy, we can't because we're just bogged down with so much stress and we're exhausted. And when we're exhausted and depleted, we're not going to show up our best. So I think it's an important thing to address today. How do we help our listeners that are managing little kids, full-time work, family, household responsibilities, all of this like this never-ending to-do list? How do we help them feel like that can be manageable and they can still make time for self-care?
Yeah, I think the first thing that comes to mind is, you know, you wake up earlier for your kids, right?
Mhm.
We both have kids. We both know this. We do this. Kid needs to be somewhere at 5 a.m. We're up at 3:30, getting everything ready and making sure everyone is ready, everything that they need. Um, so I think it's important to kind of keep that mentality. You wake up earlier for your kids. Why not for yourself?
That's right. That's right. And I remember when my kids were younger and I had to get up to put them on the bus, I used to wake up at 5 a.m. So I had that time for myself to work out and journal and do these things so that before the kids woke up and the morning got chaotic and crazy. Right. But now I can do it later because I don't have to well, my 18-year-old still needs me to wake him up, but that's a different story.
That's
But
mom life, right?
that's
Never.
mom life. It never ends. It never stops. But, it can be more flexible at this point. But, I think it's important to put yourself on that list, just like you do everyone else. And that's really what it's about. We're so busy trying to keep everyone else happy and give them what they need that we always fall to the bottom. But how do we make sure that we're up towards the top of that list too? Right?
Right. And also we have to remember that, like I mentioned earlier, is like what I give now. So I'm more intentional with my time because I'm busier. But what I give, when I do give, it's quality. I know that I'm giving quality time. I
Mhm.
know that the 30 minutes that I was able to spend with my kids at dinner, I know those were a good 30 minutes. I was
Yeah.
listening, I was present. So you have to think, how do you want to show up? Because if how you want to show up is to be present, the best way to do that is to care for yourself first. Because
Mhm.
when you are well, that's what you give out.
And let's not forget, and I will say this because, I know growing up, my mother, I don't think I ever saw her really sit down. I mean, she worked two jobs. She cooked a big meal every night. She also cleaned up the meal. And she made time, if I had homework and stuff, and then every weekend she was putting on, like, big dinner parties, and, like, we never saw her just sit and relax. And so I think growing up, I learned that, okay, I need to be going all the time in order to be productive and, you know, successful, whatever. But the reality is, we can't keep on that cycle for too long without something breaking, right? Something breaking down, either our bodies, our spirits. At the end of the day, we sacrifice something. We're saying yes to one thing and no to another always.
A
And
lot
a
of
lot of times we're saying no to ourselves because we're
yeah,
saying yes to everything else, right?
yes, and that comes also in a way that we don't often think about, but we are saying no to our health essentially, right? Because our mental health
Yes.
is the biggest, one of the biggest components here. And saying no to ourselves all of the time, like what are you taking away from that? What is your body feeling? What is the stress of the expectations that you put on yourself
Mm.
causing your body to feel? What other, health conditions that we don't often think about? What is it causing?
A lot of the clients I work with are very much in a stress response, very much so. And I can tell within a couple minutes of talking to them because they're speaking like rapidly, and it's very, it's almost like they're in this just anxious state where they're just talking really fast, they're jumping all over the place, it's elevated, they're going 100 miles an hour, and you're like, "Okay, can you just stop and take a deep breath for me and just relax?" Okay? And I think a lot of us are in that place where we're just constantly stressed. Our nervous system is in havoc, it's going crazy, and we don't even realize it. That's how sad it is. We don't even know because we're just so accustomed to being in that place. We're so used to it.
And just going, like you mentioned, like your mother, like, you know, which is the reality for a lot of moms. I was that way for so long. I never stopped, so I never felt. I didn't even, I couldn't feel my body. I never stopped to feel my body. I had
That's
to
right.
make sure my house looked like it was out of a magazine, like my kids looked like it was out of a magazine. All
Yes.
these things that are so unrealistic, especially around this time of the year where it's like we see the perfect holiday, cards that all of our friends send us with, the perfect family of four and the dog and the perfect house. And it's like, do we all know what it took to take that one picture, right? Like we're
Oh my gosh, yes. I used to have to take about 20 pictures just to get both of my kids to smile. Because they'd be like, "Why do we have to do this?" "Because your mother wants it." When really, maybe I should have just sent the picture with both of them, like one crying and one because that was them, right? Like,
that was the
and people would
realistic
probably
moment.
appreciate that, and it would
Yeah.
allow the other people to do the same and feel okay about it.
And be authentic, which is what it takes away. It takes away
Yeah.
like our authenticity. Is like, no, this is what actually happened this Christmas. These kids were, each in a corner. And it's like we all can actually relate to that. That's what actually happens. It's not that one picture that took us, 25 hours of online shopping, you know, trying to get everybody the right outfit that everybody hates, including myself by the end of it. Um, and all of that. I'm going to give you this screen for a minute so I can get my dog to stop barking.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, Louisa, you're amazing, and I definitely can relate to that because for sure, I also had the home where everything had to look picturesque, right? We had to dress and look great when we walked out of the house. Everything had to be presentable and look a certain way. And the reality is, it's just not realistic. We're killing ourselves in the process trying to keep that image up. And it feels so much freer and better when we can just have the messy house and the grumpy kids and just be who we are, right? I've come a long way in that sense where I let myself kind of just let things be a little bit. And you brought up a good point when you were talking about social media because I don't know about you, but I don't know how many times I go out and I see the whole family sitting on their phones when they're out to dinner. And I'm like, what? No one's talking to anybody. You know what I mean? And actually, last night, my son and I try to do a date night once a week just so that we have that time together. And we went out to dinner, and the first thing he did was pick up his phone. And I said, Elijah James, put that phone down and spend time with your mother. I'm making time for you. You need to make time for me. Um, and I think more of us need to do that, right? Like call each other out on it and be like, can you turn off and just give me your time and attention? Because I think at the end of the day, that's what we all want is just
Right.
somebody's time.
Right. And how do you create connection if we're both sitting here on our phones? What was the point of coming here? We could have done this at home,
That's right. That's
you know?
right.
And that connection, is essential to our human, like it, we need it. We all need it.
Yeah.
And we do, also feel like that's part of, you know, creating boundaries for yourself is being like, hey, I'm being present for you. Can you also be present for me at this time? Let's
Yeah.
enjoy the time that we have.
Yeah.
Because, you know, especially during this time of the year, we're all so busy that
Mm.
we need to make sure that people appreciate the time that we are giving them and that we do the same for others.
I love that. Yes, 100%. And I love this. My son, well, besides creating a PowerPoint presentation of his Christmas list, one of the slides he put um, to to his father, and I was like really impressed and proud of this. But he goes, the best gift you can give me is just giving me time, just you and me. And I'm like, wow, dude.
That's
So
amazing.
if you think your kids don't notice, they do.
They do. They do.
And the
Yeah.
first thing I said to him is, "Do you feel that way about me? Like you don't get my time?" And he goes, "Mom, I'd like less time with you." I'm like, "Fair enough, fair enough."
Mom
But
win. I'll take that as a mom win.
and he's
That's
like, "I'm just kidding. I love you and I love the time." But, like they notice, right? They notice when somebody shows up for them and is really there and present and gives them their time and cares. So, for all of you out there that have kids, heed this advice. Like the house is the mess is never it's always going to be there, right? The mess is always going to be there. The dishes are always going to be in the sink. There's always going to be a to-do list, but the best thing you can do is give your kids that time. It will go a long way and it will help create safety for your children. And creating safety is huge because then they will grow up with a regulated nervous system and be able to go out into the world and be able to show love and compassion, which is so important and so lacking in today's society. It
yeah.
really is.
100%. I totally agree with you. And we have to also think about what that does for their own lives when it's their turn to create their own lives with others. Like, what are going to be their expectations? What are they going to implement? So, like, like Liz mentioned earlier, her mother never sitting down. So, most of us grew up like that's the norm. That's what my mom did, so that's what
Was
we,
the expectation back in that era, right? Like you cook, you clean, you grocery shop. Like the women were the caretakers and the nurturers.
right,
And
right.
that is what I want to break. Like, okay, women, you don't have to take on the world and do it all. It's okay to put your superwoman cape down, fold it up, put it away, and ask for help, right?
Yes,
Like,
for
yes,
help. And also know that it doesn't have, it doesn't have to look like anything other than what you want it to look. Don't take the magazine or especially like I mentioned during this time, don't take an image that somebody else has created as their own perfection and make it yours. What is your perfection?
mhm,
And the times have changed. Like we are working women now, right? Like most of us have careers in addition to kids in the home and all the things that are still there. So don't take on the world. I'm not even just recommending, like Liz, I am telling you, do not do it. Your kids are going to be completely fine if they
yeah,
don't eat a gourmet meal every night. A sandwich
exactly.
is
And
fine.
honestly, I don't even think they really care.
They don't,
They
they
don't
don't.
care.
They
I've
don't.
I've made these, like, big dinners and spent an hour cooking, and then, like, there's times where my son comes home and he doesn't even eat. He's like, "Oh, I'm full," and I'm like, "Oh my gosh."
Yeah.
So, I'm like, "You could save yourself so much time." Now, I'm gonna flip that because the one thing I do promote and say all the time for for my people, they know this, it's still important to nourish your body with good, healthy food, right? Like, you don't have to create a gourmet meal, but make sure that you're eating enough fruits and vegetables and protein and you're getting your water in and you're doing the things that are good for your body, right? But you can
Absolutely.
do it an easier way.
Right. In a much easier way. You can make, a wrap in a few minutes versus, I don't know, ramen. I used to love ramen. So I'm
I
gonna
don't know
put it.
about you, but I love rotisserie chickens from Costco. I
Yes.
take those at least once a week, and I'm throwing it on a salad or making a wrap, and it's the easiest thing, and it tastes good too, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I do. I buy lettuce head for the whole week and I break it up and I put it in the fridge, broken up into little baggies, so that when I don't have time to actually make lunch, I grab it, throw some more veggies on it, and I'm ready to go.
Yeah,
Um,
it's perfect.
yeah, so simple things that will be very helpful in implementing, making you, feel or actually providing for your family the things that you want to provide. You want to provide a healthy meal? Good. Doesn't mean you have to spend 5 hours cooking it. Nobody has that kind of time.
Not anymore, no. I don't know if anyone ever did, but no, we
Right.
definitely don't. I mean, I know for me, I try to on the weekends do a little bit of batching with food, like either, taking like a big pack of chicken and cooking it ahead of time. I make my salad on Sunday, so I have it for lunches for the week. Like there are ways you can do things ahead of time so that when you're busy during the week, you can just kind of grab and go. Because if you're like my son, you will not take the time to make anything healthy. So if it's not grab and go, he doesn't eat it. So,
Yeah, I have a teenage boy too. It's the same. He's 16, and if he has to turn on a stove, it's not
uh,
gonna happen. It is
it's
not gonna
not.
happen. Yeah.
I'm lucky that you
So,
get the microwave going.
yeah. Yeah. And I'm like,
I'm
like,
like,
yeah,
dude, you put it in 30 seconds. You got this,
yeah, yeah,
But yeah, I mean, it's just things like that where if you can kind of save yourself time when you have a little additional time, it's a great way to build in more time for yourself during the week.
yes,
I do want to talk about the adverse effects of not taking that time for self care. And because I think if we can touch on that and people can really become aware of how it affects us, it might promote everyone to want and encourage them to make a little bit more time.
yeah. I totally agree, and I think that if we don't put that out there more, is the negative effects. I think that then we continue to look at it as something that I may hopefully someday I'll be able to take care of myself. But maybe if we understand the effects that it's having right now, as we speak, as you mentally make the decision that
Mhm.
self-care is not a priority, these are the things that are already or could potentially be negatively impacting you.
Absolutely. And for any of you that got this in your email, the self care quiz, hopefully you were able to take it and kind of understand where you are and how you rate on the self care journey. I did take it. I had one B and two A's. So I thought that was pretty good. That's a pretty good GPA overall. But
I
um,
agree.
I think if you didn't get this, DM us, let us know, because I think it just gives you some insight and awareness as to where you're at and what you can improve upon, which never hurts, right? But I think, there's those that do have a lot of anxiety and depression, right? And sometimes just getting up and out of bed and being able to brush your teeth, that's a big task, right?
There,
So
yeah.
So it's how do you pour into yourself to just get excited and feel good, right, about what you're doing to inspire that, you know what I mean, that ability to wake up and get to a place like how do you go from someone that just feels broken, exhausted, doesn't have a lot of hope to somebody, well, that's like us in our healing journey. How do you go from there to here? What are your thoughts on that?
I think it starts with first the decision. Um, I think the decision starts, and I'll speak of it in my terms of my own journey. I made the decision, and then I think it took me like 3 months to actually take action.
Mhm.
I would tell myself every day, okay, I'm going to start today. When I finish this project, when I finish my daughter's room, when I finish decorating this living room, when I finish the next living room, when always something.
Yeah,
You have to, and I understand in the depression because I was there
yeah,
when my journey started, but it is a choice. It is a conscious choice that you have to make and act on.
That's right.
Like I mentioned earlier with regards to my morning routine, it took months to implement because I didn't, I didn't realize the importance of it. And once you get a taste, at least this was my experience, once I got a taste, for me, it was meditation in my morning routine. Once I got a taste of meditation, and I had a closet in my house at that time that barely fit one person, but it was the only place my kids and my dog and everybody in the house couldn't find me. And that was the first
I love those.
it was the first place that I meditated, and it became my altar. It became my sacred space in my home because
Yeah.
once I got a taste of that, so from the decision to the actual action, took me about 3 months. But once I got a taste of that, and I was like, there's peace. Like, this is peace. I didn't remember what that felt like.
Yeah.
And those like few minutes of that peace were life changing for me
Oh, I
because
love.
it was the literal moment that made me realize that, oh my gosh, like I'm more than everything that I do all day. And I didn't realize that in that one session. What I realized in those first few moments was just the fact that if I can take action one day and feel just what was a glimpse, which at the time for me felt like a lifetime
I
because
was
I
gonna say.
yeah, yeah, I had never even taken the 5 minutes to myself. It felt like a whole lifetime of peace at that time. But I realized if I take 5 minutes and that makes me feel that, what is are all these other things that I could do that I could implement in my day to day to take care of myself? How could they change me?
I have a couple things I want to add to that. So, one, a lot of our viewers, the word meditation is just like, oh no, like, like, and I know firsthand because we've talked about this with a few, and they're like, yeah, no, right? So, how do we
Yep.
change the stigma around the word meditation so that it's not so, doesn't feel so overbearing, right? Because the thought of even sitting with ourselves for a minute and just listening to our breathing could probably feel like a lifetime to a lot of our viewers.
Yeah, I would. So for me, I have heard that before. So a lot of people will say like stillness, whatever that looks like for you. And for some other people, the way that they choose to meditate is like going for a walk in nature, for example. Yeah,
Yeah.
like for a lot of people, that's their meditation. For me, it's the stillness, the sitting. I need that. But people I know personally get the same effects that I get out of that stillness going for that morning walk. Some people run, some people do like gymnastics. I have a friend who's an avid soccer player. That's her meditation. That's how she
And
gets.
and I think that's an important, or excuse me, that's an important point, right? We don't have to be sitting in
Uh,
like a certain position with our eyes closed, like you see, right, on the videos or wherever, to be meditating, right? For me, meditating's always been my time in nature and doing walks and getting outside. And I've told you this, like it helps remind me that life is bigger than anything I'm feeling, right? It just brings me in touch with the universe and with nature, and it's my way of just getting in touch and in my body. So anything you do, I know for my daughter, it's getting in the car and just driving.
yeah.
For some people, to your point, walking, some people, whatever it is, it could just be sitting with a cup of hot tea and your
Mhm.
favorite book. There's a lot of ways to practice that meditation. It's really all about just getting in your body and getting centered, right?
It
Is that
is. That is the bottom line. Whatever
yeah.
that looks like for you, and it looks different for all of us because my daughter, which is funny that you mentioned, that's her meditation is sitting in the car. She'll make me drive around for like 45 minutes.
Yeah.
When windows down, that's her thing and she comes out of that completely revived.
Isn't it funny? But it's just whatever resonates with you. For for my mom, it's probably baking cookies. You
Yes.
know, my mother's your traditional mom, you know, and her moo cooking and baking. That brings her joy. She loves with food and cookies. So, you know, for her, that's probably her meditation, right? But for everybody, it's what brings you joy and peace and allows you to feel centered. So whoever asked, can you help explain what meditation is? I hope that helps because for a long time I felt the same way. I felt like I had to like sit and do like this a certain way. And for me that didn't feel good. Like I was like, I don't now I can do it a little bit more, but you know, when I was starting out that was too hard to just sit there. So find what works for you, but it's just about getting in your body, getting centered, and just something that brings you peace and joy. Find that and start there. That's a great way to start. I hope that helped answer your question.
Yeah, that is. I'm glad you caught that because that is a great way.
Yeah.
It's about what works for you ultimately in everything.
All of these things that we talk about, you can really make them your own, right? I know another thing that I'm avid with is journaling, right? I journal every day. I have probably about 20 journals in my nightstand. It's a little overwhelming, but I love it because sometimes I can go back and look at where I was a year ago and be like, "Damn girl, you're good." Right? And it helps. But I know journaling isn't for everybody. I know reading isn't for everybody, right? So we all have different ways. Some people would rather listen to a book, others would rather read it. Some people would rather read it on a Kindle, someone like actually like the book. Some people like to journal by talking, and just maybe you take the recording on your phone and you just talk out how you're feeling. Or some people like to write in a journal. Some people like to journal on their phone. And by the way, thank you, Mandy. If you update your Apple phone, there is now a journaling app.
Oh, that's awesome. I did not know that.
Yes, I found out from Mandy this morning and I was like, yes, no excuses now. Um, but
That
yeah,
is
so there's always, everyone has their own way of doing things. And I think it's important to point that out because there isn't a one way for everything. Like there's always different ways and different things you can do to take care of yourself. It doesn't have to look like a certain way, right? It just has to be your way in a way that works for you and fit it into your day in your life.
that's right. That's right. I do find with the self-care, with that being said, that it is what fits into your life. I do want to kind of go back to the beginning of where we talked about our morning routines. For
Yeah.
me, mom of two, working full time, I did find that if I did not fit it in the morning before life started, I was going to make all the excuses to not make it happen.
Yes.
So I know that some of our viewers had, some of the questions that we got were related to like, how do you fit it in? That's how you fit it in. You have to make sure that whatever time you choose to do it, it's just, there's nothing that's going to stop you from being able to do it. I
Yeah.
just want
And
to bring that up.
no, it's a great point, Louisa. And I think it's also touches a little bit with habits, right? The habits we create for ourselves. Until I put those habits in place, I wasn't, it wasn't something that I did on a regular basis. It wasn't until I started doing it every day that it became a habit and it's just something I did by nature, right? It just became very routine. And I think that's where really knowing what it is you want to do and adding it into your routine is so important because then you're more likely to do it and stick
Right.
with it.
Yes. And understanding that, figuring out that knowing of what you want to do, it may take some trying and some figuring it out, right? If you've never done it before, you may not know what it is that you want to do or how you want to structure your day. So give yourself that grace and that space to figure it out, the first few
Yeah.
takes you. And also be graceful with yourself in that it could change. You could decide that this is how I'm going to do it. And then, your life changes or your job changes or you don't like it anymore. It's okay. Give yourself that grace. There's nothing that needs to be, set in stone. It needs to work for you.
Yeah, self-compassion is important, especially anytime you're starting anything new. It's really important to give yourself that grace and to show yourself self-love and compassion versus just judging yourself, right? Which is so easy to do. Um, and I wanted, I always say this, but just like anything you're starting out, like don't think you have to put three things on your calendar tomorrow and spend an hour doing this, right? Like start small, take baby steps. I use the marathon. They're probably so sick of the marathon analogy, but, like if you decide you wanna do a marathon, you can't just say, "One day I'm gonna do it," and go do it. There's a lot of preparation that goes into that, and you have to start by maybe buying the shoes or getting a trainer, right? So think about one small thing you can do every day that you can stick with, and maybe start with 5 minutes.
Yes.
I'm sorry,
Yes.
but who doesn't have 5 minutes, right? And if you tell me you don't have 5 minutes, I don't believe it, right? Because we all have the same amount of time. It's just how we choose to spend our time. So instead of, scrolling through Facebook or Instagram, take that 5 minutes that you would just be scrolling and put that into yourself.
Yeah. And another thing, for example, like at kids' games, your kids at a soccer game, maybe the first 5 minutes you stay away from the other moms and you know, write in your journal or whatever you choose to do at that time, but take the 5 minutes from wherever you are, kind of to the idea of start where you are with what you have and take those 5 minutes from that situation. Or are you waiting for your kid after school in the car? And it takes them, 15 minutes like my son does to like leave the school. I don't know how big can this school be that it takes you 15 minutes to get
Listen,
uh
they have to talk along the way,
yes,
right?
but how
It's their
every
social
girl
time.
soccer.
But
uh,
yeah, I agree. I definitely agree. And I think it's important to do that, right? I I've always been big on that. It's finding the time because we all have it. It's just finding it, right? And there is like a lot of creative ways. I don't care if it's waiting for your kids to come, after school and you're picking them up, if it's a few minutes, whatever it is, you can carve out a few minutes. And a lot of people love music therapy, right?
yeah, I was thinking about that earlier. Yes.
I love music. It just helps them. So maybe it's just getting in your car and playing a couple of your favorite songs for a few minutes. Again, there's no rules on this. It's just finding something you can resonate with. Maybe it's picking up the phone and calling someone.
Mhm.
I'll tell you the best way to feel good is through gratitude. If you can really sit in gratitude and be grateful for what you have, it goes a long way.
I agree 100%. I
I mean,
grad
every day I try to reach out to someone and show gratitude, whether, it's a picture that reminds me, whether it's, something I have a lot of memories and I'll usually share them and be like, oh my gosh, I loved this moment together,
Mhm.
whatever it is, or I'm just grateful for you, period,
Yeah,
and your presence in my life. But I think by doing that, it really centers us and brings us into the present moment and allows us just to sit in abundance,
yeah.
right?
I totally agree. And I would say the same thing in the words that I would use would be, whatever energy you put out, that's what you're going to get back. So when you sit in that gratitude and you're appreciative and express that to someone else, that's what you're going to get back. And that abundance is going to turn right around and it's going to come back to you.
Absolutely. And, I think another thing is, we've touched on a lot of these that I had written down, like the journaling, eating healthy. I think another one is just putting your phone, I put my phone on work a lot so that I eliminate the distractions because it's very by nature during the day. We want to just respond to messages or to emails. So if we can, just put our phone on airplane mode or silence it and just put it away, it allows us that focused time on whatever we're working on.
Yeah.
Ooh, and before I forget, I did want to bring up because I think it's awesome. I wanted to bring up this book. I know we talked about it, Louisa, but The
Yes.
High Five Habit by Mel Robbins. And those of you who haven't followed Mel Robbins, please
Go
do.
do. Go
She's
do
amazing.
it.
Go
Go.
do it. She's amazing. Go follow her on Insta, Facebook, whatever. She is very involved, and has some wonderful, just like quick points that are really great takeaways. But the one I wanted to point out today is this right here. And I can share this with you guys if you want it. DM us and I can make sure to share this with you because I have an electronic version. But it's write 5 things you want. Okay. Because if you don't know what you want, you can't get it. Right.
Ooh, yes. Yes.
So I always know what I want and what my goals are because then I can take actionable steps to getting those, right? So I've already created for 2024 my things that I want because then I can, and we both have actually, because that's
Yes,
how we
we do.
met, right?
Yep.
So you have to have that intention as far as what is it I want, how do I get it, and what do I need to do to get it, right? If you want to go back to school and maybe it costs $1,000, then guess what you got to do? You got to save that money, have a school pot, and just take a couple dollars even and just keep putting into it because then that's showing I'm making myself a priority and I'm making the things I want a priority and you're pouring into yourself. And it's really important.
It's extremely important, and I'll point out. I'll add to that is the way that I started to do that was to get really specific. So I would start. So like you mentioned, for example, I want to go back to school. I need $1,000. So how am I going to get to $1,000? So you kind of start reverse engineering that. Go ahead. How do you get here? Is okay. This week I'm going to save five. This week I'm going to save five. This week I'm going to save five, and you start to do that. And for me, I'm a visual person. If you tend to lose track of how you're going to get somewhere, how you're going to get something that you want, i have I literally will put it wherever I know I'm going to see it every single day. I am the person with her house. I have papers all over my house hanging on walls. Tape is my best friend.
Oh, I
um,
do too. I have my goals on my wall.
yeah, I do, yeah. And sticky notes are, it's a must, I think, especially starting in your self care journey. And when you have to relearn how to prioritize yourself, that's a really good takeaway is write it down so you can see it visually to make
Mhm.
sure that you are getting what you want. Because what starts to happen, right, is from the point of this is what I want to that first time that you get something that you wrote down that you want, I can
Boy,
tell
it
you
feels
that,
good.
oh, it felt so good.
It
So good.
feels so good. And you
So
appreciate it more, right? You're more grateful for it.
yes, so much more grateful. And for me, the paper trail is important for that because it's like, oh, this is where I started. Like, this is where I started. This is what I started telling myself. And this is what I got, you know?
Yes, I love that. It's so true. It's so true. Like for me, one of the things I've been working on this year is I have limiting beliefs around money. I don't know if anybody else does out there, but it's been, I grew up single mom, worked 2 jobs. Money was, tight growing up. And so growing up, I always thought money was hard to come by, and so I've had to work really hard to let go of those limiting beliefs. So I literally have a dollar bill and it says, "Thank you for all the money I've been given throughout my life." And I read this multiple times a day because it allows me, that mantra allows me to kind of release that limiting belief and allow me to sit in abundance and believe that, money is not hard to come by. It's something that you can very easily attract, but you just have to manifest and sit in that energy and believe that that's possible, right?
100%. So it's funny. I have a whiteboard, and that is one of the things I'm currently manifesting. What I actually did, I went as far as to, I forget what book it was. It was, I'll have to find it and share it with y'all. But I read in a book that here's this idea, go buy a purse. And in that purse, when you buy it, and every time you hold that purse, tell yourself, this is the purse that I am holding, that I'm opening, for the universe, for all the money that the universe is going to give me. So
Ooh, I like
that's my
that.
station, and I got a big purse. I got the biggest purse in
I got a big purse. Can I get a duffel bag?
yes. I I am ready for all of the money that the universe is going to give me. I am ready and open. And so, because same like you, so my limiting belief is a little different in that it's about the abundance of it. It's like, oh my God, it's gonna end. Like it's not gonna keep coming. And
That's
it's like,
right.
it's
That's
gonna
right.
keep coming. I got this big bag. It's gonna keep coming.
Well, and I think that brings up a point, right? Like we all sit in a lot of fear.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's what you do with that fear. I always say it's what you do with the fear, right? Do you let it control you or do you learn how to control it by managing it and leaning into it, right? Because I think if we break it down, what am I really afraid of at the end of the day? Because I'm guessing it's probably not the tangible thing you think it is. I think if you sit with that fear, it's going to, come to something, some sort of old pattern that you're holding on to and haven't healed yet that's going to come up. And that's how I knew about the money, working with my own coach and realizing that the reason it was kind of dictating how I was running and managing my business, right? Because it was that limiting belief that was there from childhood. So I think it's important that if we can sit with some of that stuff and really try to understand it, it will help us, right? And I know we're getting off topic, but
Yeah.
it will. So, all right, let me look over. And one other thing too, as far as self-care and all of that going back, I think we try to put too many things on our list. And we
Yes.
didn't touch on this, and I wanted to. We're not realistic with ourselves. We put way too much pressure on ourselves. We add a list that is mighty, right? And if you're writing everything down that you have, I'm sure it's a long list, and it's not going to be realistic. You're not going to be able to get through all that in one day, and you're going to feel defeated, and you're going to feel awful.
Every
So
day.
every day, right? Because you're like, "Oh man, here it
I'm
is. It's pushing to
enough.
the next day. It's pushing to the
Yeah.
next day. It's pushing to
Yeah.
the next
I'm
day."
not enough. I'm not productive enough. I'm not getting enough done. Why am I not good enough? Why can everybody else? All
Do
those.
this and I can't. And it's this never-ending loop that we in this game that we play with ourselves instead of being realistic with what we can do. So what are 3 things that are time sensitive or that are a priority that you have to get done today? Start there. Put 3 things, at most 5 on your list, and that's where you put your focus and you spend your time because then it is manageable, it is realistic and something you can do and you'll end up feeling a lot better about yourself because hey, guess what? I accomplished everything on my list today, right?
Yeah. And it starts to shift. The way that you feel about it starts to shift. And what
That's
you start to see in my experience is that the quality of the things that I was able to get done so much better than the rushing around and sitting here trying to do this while I'm thinking about the 100 things that I put on my list today that I didn't get to. It's a complete game changer, you know. So I
yes.
do 100% agree with it. You know, like I start my days with here's the 3 to 5 things, and those 3 to 5 things, I have a lot of grace with myself. Um, every day where I'm like, okay, those are the 3 to 5 things that needed attention. But if life happens, because it does, especially if you're a parent, and not just a parent, but you know, a lot of other really important roles that we all have each day, life happens. I'm okay with moving the last thing or two to, you know, to the list for the next day if they're really a priority. And then I'll prioritize those 2 or 3 things the next day.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Me too. I think that I always put the things that are most important at the top. And
Yes.
then I kinda, will create that running list, but I think you have to kinda have an idea, know what is the must to dos today and what can kinda wait. If I needed to move this to tomorrow, could I do that? And how would that impact things? If it doesn't impact things that much, then why not, right? So, again, it's just knowing what you need to do, being mindful of that, setting reasonable expectations, showing yourself compassion, right? Putting
Yes.
yourself on that list, which is really important. Because at the end of the day, I want everyone to kind of go through this season feeling good about themselves, ending the year, which, oh my gosh, there's not many more days left in the year, but using the time we have left in the year, ending it on a good note so we can start 2024 on a positive note, right? And feel good.
Absolutely. And I think, because it starts with small habits, I think this is a great time to start because you start doing the little small things, implementing them now. And then by the end of the year, you've got kind of a small rhythm going where by the beginning of next year, you can really dig deep into things and start to see the effects of the little implementations that you have started to make now and feel that abundance and feel that maybe peace, maybe feel that sense of accomplishment on a day to day that we can then roll the rest of next year on and we're gonna roll high next.
Woo! We're gonna do amazing things,
Yes,
girl.
yes.
I know. I woke up so excited this morning. I was like, I'm so excited, for a first time in a long time. I'm so excited about the future. I'm so
Yeah,
excited. So many
yeah.
wonderful things ahead. And I'm really excited. I feel
Me
good.
too. Me too. I'm extremely excited. I think the future is a very positive, beautiful one. And we are here to help you be the best version of yourself. We're here to answer any questions. We're here to help you in any way that we can. Whether it's self care rituals, whether any aspect of loving yourself, of healing, we're here for it. We're here to help you. And Liz and I both are doing this because we've been there. So we're also getting this from people. We're not just Googling this to give it to you. These are our experiences. We have felt it. We've been exactly where you are,
Yes, for
right?
sure. And I think that makes it so special is because we can turn our pain into power, right? Turn our pain into a purpose and be able to give back and help other women that are struggling in their own healing and self-love journey. And I don't know about you, but I wake up every day excited to be able to do that and be in this, to be of service and to be in this line of work and to just hear your stories. I love hearing your stories and being able to give back and use the experience to help others. So, very blessed, very grateful.
Same. Yeah, me too. I feel the same. I feel blessed. I feel honored, to be honest, to be able to have this platform to help y'all answer your questions and be here. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And I know we ran over time, so thank you as always for hanging out with us a little longer today. Really appreciate you guys all showing up on your Wednesday afternoon, your lunch breaks, or whatever you're doing today. We hope it's fabulous. Remember to make yourself a priority and to use today to set some intentions of things you really want and figuring out how can I bring this into fruition? How can I make this a reality? And be gentle and kind with yourself. That's important.
It's
And
so
next week, I believe we're talking all about healing our wounds. And I'm
yes.
really excited about that.
Yes, and we're going to focus on letting go and moving forward. We are not going to sit in those wounds. We are going to
No.
let go and move forward. So, next week, that is our topic. Liz and I look forward to seeing all of you here and invite your friends. Send
Yes,
this
please
out.
share.
Yes. Share it. We're here for all of you.
Absolutely. And we love having this time and space for all of you to join and hop on, and just so grateful for each and every one of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
See y'all next week.